I'm gonna give you guys 5 Christmas traditions that have insane origins.
All right, let's see it.
Number 1 is the Christmas tree. The pagans saw evergreen trees as fertility symbols. They decorated them with carvings of pagan gods and put sweets, nuts, things like that onto the tree as offerings to the gods. And to top their trees off, they put 8-pointed stars to attract Ishtar, the goddess of fertility. They loved their trees so much that they gathered around them and sang songs to them.
So while pre-Christian European people groups absolutely saw evergreens as symbolic of fertility and life, and sometimes incorporated them into festivals and celebrations that took place outdoors, they weren't connected with Ishtar in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, or with offerings. And there is nothing that connects those celebrations with the development of the Christmas tree, which is brought indoors and incorporated into indoor celebrations. This is a uniquely Christian innovation that took place in the Upper Rhine region in the 14 and 1500s. And if you'd like a wonderful discussion of the evidence for the origins of the Christmas tree and why it is a uniquely Christian innovation, you can check out Religion for Breakfast's wonderful video on this from last year.
Next up, we have Gingerbread Men. Gingerbread Men originated from the Saturnalia festival. They would make little ginger biscuits shaped like men, and they would all eat them right before they did ritual sacrifices.
This is laughably false. Not a word of this is true. We do have evidence of ginger being used in bread back in like 3rd millennium BCE Greece, but we don't have gingerbread as we know it today being baked and made into different kinds of shapes and incorporated into celebrations and festivals until around medieval Europe and probably a little later, the 15th, 16th centuries. And there is a legend that the gingerbread man originates with Queen Elizabeth I, who used to have them made and decorated to resemble visiting dignitaries. That's just a legend, but we don't have any evidence of any such practice predating that time period. So it definitely doesn't go back to Roman Saturnalia.
Number 3, the pagans believed that Odin, the sun god, came down from Asgard once a year and visited them through their fireplaces. He would catch a ride on his 8-legged horse. That's why there was originally 8 reindeer before they added Rudolph.
So again, this is a couple of actual facts mixed with a bunch of pure and utter nonsense. Odin was not the sun god, Odin was the sky god. They did ride an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir through the sky, according to some traditions, but this was associated with the wild hunt. That's why that picture shows hunting dogs and him holding up a spear. This is something that could take place around the winter solstice, but also on stormy nights. Has nothing to do with fireplaces, and there's no connection between Sleipnir and Santa's 8 reindeer because Santa did not originally have 8 reindeer. Originally, Santa had 0 reindeer, then Santa had 1 reindeer, then Santa had 8 reindeer. If we go back to Washington Irving's early 19th century book, A Knickerbocker's History of New York, he describes Santa riding a wagon over the trees and the rooftops. No reference to any animal pulling it. However, St. Nicholas, the bishop, traditionally rode a horse along the ground. And then we have an 1821 poem that is anonymous that was published in a children's magazine called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight, which includes an illustration showing Santa riding a sleigh pulled by a single reindeer. And then 2 years later, we have Clement Clarke Moore's famous poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, which we know today as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, where Santa rides a sleigh pulled by 8 reindeer. So no, Santa's 8 reindeer have nothing to do with Sleipnir or with Odin.
Which leads us into number 4. Pagans would leave out milk and pastries for Odin, and the children would leave snacks for his 8-legged horse in their boot by the fireplace. If you left out tasty enough treats for Odin and his horse, he would leave small gifts in the boot. And that's how we got our stocking.
This is all made up because we don't really have any idea how the practice of leaving out stockings by the fireplace for Santa originated. But the fact that people historically hung stockings by fireplaces to dry them almost certainly has a role to play. But anyone who tells you it came from this specifically is just making it up.
And the last one is absolutely insane. So pagans thought that mistletoes represented Saturn, and they also saw it as the ultimate fertility tool around this time of year. So they would throw giant parties, get really, really drunk, hang one of these up, and then get down in an attempt to create as many as possible.
So again, this is just pure and utter nonsense. The earliest association we have of mistletoe with Christmas and Christianity comes in medieval Europe, as so many of these symbols do, when they would hang it over doors to symbolize peace and goodwill around Christmas time. And many Christians saw the white berries as symbolic of the purity of the Virgin Mary and the evergreen leaves as symbolic of eternal life. And this could have association with Norse traditions that associate mistletoe with Balder, who could only be hurt by the mistletoe plant, and so in one tradition was killed by a spear constructed out of mistletoe. And then his mother said, instead of associating this plant with death, she wanted to associate it with life and goodwill, which aligns with the way medieval Christians used the plant. So that symbol could have some relationship to pre-Christian European traditions, but we don't know for sure.
Disclaimer, I am not judging whatsoever. Don't be mad at me. I wasn't the one that took the pagan traditions. I'm just the messenger. This is satire for entertainment purposes only.
So I think the most accurate thing said in this entire video was that thing toward the end about all of this being a joke. But I want to close with two thoughts. The first one is that I see an awful lot of people who seem to imagine that they're critiquing Christianity by accusing Christians of having stolen everything from paganism. But in so doing, they so frequently frame pagans as perpetually trying to kill and sacrifice anything and anyone they can get their hands on, or have sex with anything and anyone they can get their hands on. And they don't seem to be aware that all this is doing is perpetuating the anti-pagan propaganda that early Christians used to try to demonize the pre-Christian people groups that they were trying to convert. And the second thing I want to point out is that Christmas is and always has been practiced in a wide variety of different and ever-changing ways in the many different Christian societies around the world. And that is going to continue to be the case. And when we see similarities, this is not always because something was stolen. It certainly can be and has been the case. Christianity has a long history of destroying cultures and then rifling through their pockets for loose symbolism and conventions. Sometimes it's because symbols are widespread and they can be interpreted in similar ways by peoples operating independently of each other. Sometimes it's because people groups are next to each other for a long, long time, and conventions just kind of merge, and directions of influence become phenomenally murky. Sometimes it's because pre-Christian European people groups converted to Christianity. Christianity tried to get them to leave their conventions behind, and they said, no, we're going to maintain these conventions, and we don't care what you say. So there are a lot of different reasons that there can be similarities of a lot of different degrees of proximity between pre-Christian European people groups and their conventions and Christian people groups and their conventions. And the notion that it's all because Christians stole from pagans is neither insightful nor thoughtful. So I think we would all do well to stop trying to use these claims to gin up clicks. And the fit for this video has been the reign of the Supermen.